dear Nathan Felix, Mexican-American composer. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you. Dear Felix, as you know, the Öcalan's isolation is on the agenda now of the Kurds, of millions of the Kurds as well in living in Europe too. So you also showed some solidarity with the Kurdish struggle as well as the Kurdish leader Mr. Abdullah Öcalan. So in 2020, you released Öcalan, a chamber opera. So could you please tell us a little more about this job you did, and if there is any upcoming projects, if you have anything about Öcalan?
Absolutely. So correct. In 2020, right at the beginning of what became the pandemic, I recorded a chamber opera, and it was an inspiration for the Kurdish movement and for Abdullah Öcalan. And it was 20 minutes long. It featured opera singers, and then it featured a pianist and some strings, and we recorded it. And it's a very special chamber opera for me because it was intended to be performed live at South by Southwest. But because of the pandemic, we had to simply focus on the recording. So I, I was surprised at the recognition that it received internationally. But at the end of the day, I was very um, excited to know that through this recording, it's touched more people and it's become a bigger part of the overall movement, which myself and a handful of my colleagues in the US are very passionate about. And we're just excited to be a part of it just through using our artistic voices, which I think is very important.
Thank you. So, as you know, the isolation still continues. It's been 29 months. Nothing has been heard from Öcalan, and in many different fields, people trying to show solidarity and make the isolation to uh, be broken, basically. So, do you have any upcoming projects on Öcalan, or any compositions that you are working on, maybe?
So my goal and sort of what I'm focusing on for the next 6 months to a year is I want to continue to build upon this 20-minute chamber opera. So I want to make it maybe a 40-minute or a 60-minute piece, but I also want it to be performed live. And my goal for this project is to be performed live in Europe or at a conference or something that can, I guess, be part of the movement in Europe and closer to where in Rojava.
Let's talk about little more about Öcalan's ideas. Do you think Öcalan's these three important ideas, which is the woman freedom, ecological, and democratic ideas, these paradigms are already been inspiring to Western people? How important do you think these ideas? Very shortly, please.
Sure. I think it's extremely important. Excuse me. I think it's extremely important. And as you mentioned, I mean, these social issues and topics are starting to become a lot more prevalent in our ideology here in the West. Women's empowerment, gender equality. I mean, thinking about, cooperative, you know, social democratic ideas, I think are ways that we want to sort of further explore because it's it's something that I think is a long time past due.
Thank you. So, also, these ideas are against the system, the capitalist modernity system. So, in that case, what do you think Turkey's backers in the West have to fear from Öcalan and his ideas? Do you think these ideas are kind of threat for the capitalist modernity system?
Well, in terms of isolating Ocalan, I guess they're trying to, in my opinion, sort of break the spirit of the Kurdish people. And what I see is, I think it's just making it's strengthening it. And I think it's a travesty to hold any human captive in this manner. And definitely, I think that something needs to be done about it.
Thank you. So just to make it little more underlined as well. So do you think this isolation is against the human rights or prisoner rights? So what is your call to Western powers to stop the isolation? Because Europe always sells itself with human rights and democracy, but when it comes to the Öcalan, this democracy and human rights doesn't apply. So what is your call to them in that case?
Yeah, well, first of all, I do think it's against basic human rights. And I think that it's a shame that what is it, almost 2 years or maybe a little over 2 years, that we haven't heard anything or any of how he's been treated or heard about Abdullah. And I think that the powers that be in the West, Europe, the United States, need to look past politics, and they need to look at the Kurdish struggle. They need to look at the basic human rights and how someone is treated in this imprisonment.
Okay, very shortly, why do you think Öcalan should be free? What is your freedom for Öcalan message? As you remember, Nelson Mandela has been released as well after a huge campaign that has been run for him. So, why do you think, first of all, Öcalan should be free? And secondly, what is your message for freedom for Öcalan?
Well, I think that there's a precedence, as you mentioned, with Mandela, for Öcalan to be free. And I mean, the Kurdish, their autonomous state and their fight, against Turkey, against ISIS. I mean, these are things that we've come to learn are important in the fight for humanity. And so I think that having their leader, or the Kurds leader, out free, I think would be a great step and a great achievement for uh, our international um, our international strength. And my message to Abdullah Öcalan, which is insane to think that I'm sending a message to somebody that is so iconic, is just that what an inspiration. I mean, even though maybe his literal voice is not being heard, it's being continued and pushed through art. And that's what I feel very blessed and honored to be part of, is that furthering his voice past just his literal voice.
Dear Nathan Felix, Mexican American music composer, thanks for joining us, and thank you for your valuable comments today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. It means a lot. I'm honored.